Alright. Let's get into this. So, I talked about this in a video a couple days ago, but let's get more into specifically who is this third descender. We need to figure this out. Now, there's a couple theories floating around out there already. The Sinner from Conria, that's one. Too vague though. And then we got Niblong, the Dragon King that Apep told us about, but that doesn't really make sense because he would be older than even the first two came, the primordial one. So how could he be the third descender? He would have been around Teyvat longer than anybody. So that kind of doesn't really make sense. And just because something doesn't make sense doesn't mean it's debunked, because, we know Hoyoverse in all of their games likes to mislead us and stuff like that, but the time cap's just too big for that one. And I've seen Paimon, which I actually did think about, but I do think Paimon's the primordial one, if I'm being honest with you guys, so I don't think so. It's never impossible, but I just don't see it. We could just say that this Sinner is the third descender and call it a day. This vague, unknown entity, antagonistic character that we just don't know anything about. And it would be that simple. But who is the Sinner? The Sinner could be many people. The Battle Pass characters, our Sibling, or King Irmin. Now, who's King Irmin? Well, actually, King Irmin was the king of Conria, and under his reign, Conria began creating crazy mechanisms and abyssal-like experiments we've seen, Albedo, all these abyssal creatures we fought, the massive ruin guards, and apparently he got these secrets from beyond the stars and skies. Isn't that what a Descender does? Which is also very likely related to forbidden knowledge, which I talked about in videos in the past, talking about the Sinner and Irminsul. That's a whole nother freaking anomaly, because we know Irminsul can be altered and changed. Ruka Devada herself was able to erase her own memory and existence from people's minds through Irminsul connected to the ley lines. All of Teyvat's history is recorded through Irminsul, and that is just it. Irminsul is one of the biggest anomalies in Genshin because it can be used for good or bad. If you can erase someone's existence like Ruka Devada never existed at all, then perhaps King Irmin got a lot of his secrets and knowledge from this, and this alone caused him to be the Sinner, learning all this forbidden stuff like King Deshert. So King Irmin is definitely a suspect to be the Sinner, but Skirk believes that the third descender is deceased. Now, all of the prime suspects to be the third descender would have been still alive, wouldn't they have? So this creates a bit of a problem, because I also think the Traveler is a suspect to be the third descender too. But if the third descender is deceased, then it's more or less just some random, unknown entity that we haven't met yet, and that would be pretty boring. Just some random descender that we just haven't seen yet. Just behind the scenes, dead already, harvest the Gnosis, give it to the Archons. But if that's not the case, and it is actually the Sinner, or King Irmin, who I believe to be the Sinner, then how would this go down? Well, it does actually line up with Conria's beliefs, not having an Archon, living outside the laws of Teyvat and the Seven, and ultimately why he would be dabbling in this abyssal creations and magic to overthrow the principles. Perhaps the second who came, the Sustainer, defeated him, was able to harvest, elemental Gnosises out of his body or some form of this, and he was exiled in Teyvat. Maybe he stumbled upon Irminsul and started this whole new plan. That could be one theory. Because we know that Descenders, or some of them at least like us, can resonate with all the elements. So it makes sense for the third Descender to also be able to do this, in theory, and it makes sense why King Irmin, or the Sinner, would be raising a nation to challenge the Heavenly Principles because of this defeat. Because who else would have been strong enough to defeat the third Descender and have this kind of grudge? Obviously, Hoyoverse is deliberately leaving out a lot of key pieces, but this is one theory. Now, another is the Sibling, our Sibling that we're looking for. Would make sense, story-wise, because they're this, looming character that we're always looking for. Now, I know, Nahida said that they're not a Descender. Yeah, well, I call bullshit on that, for quite a few reasons, and I know when that Archon quest wrapped up last year, a lot of people thought that was bullshit too. It just didn't add up. There was something not quite right about that. And that's because they're using a tactic I believe is like hiding in plain sight. This has been done many times in storytelling. Does it make sense that our sibling's not a Descender? Because if not, how are they our sibling? Are our parents, from different planets? Long distance relationship? Or Are we step siblings? Like, yeah, I got a step sibling in Teyvat, but they're not like my real sibling. Like, that doesn't even make any sense. And we've seen in the opening cutscene that they're both flying around as stars, and they both have similar abilities in that cutscene against the Sustainer. So why would our sibling not be a Descender? There's a few reasons. It's trickery, kind of like Focalor did to the Heavenly Principles. We've seen in 4.2. That could be one reason. It's trickery. How would they do this? Well, Irmin can do a lot of really weird things, alter people's memories and perception of what is. And Archons are not exempt from this. We've seen this. So, I don't know. I think the sibling is a Descender, or maybe our sibling's been cloned or some form. We've seen this happen too a million times. Puppets made, clones. This would not be out of the realm of what Conria is capable of, because we know our sibling was in Conria before the destruction. So, this is another possibility as well. Now, we know that storytelling, they use this tactic all the time. Like, you remember in Avengers Age of Ultron when all of the Avengers are trying to pick up Thor's hammer, and then none of them can do it, but Captain America goes up, budges it a little bit, but can't quite pick it up, and Thor looks relieved. We all thought at the time, oh, I guess he can almost pick it up. See, but that doesn't make any sense. And then when he finally picked it up in the final Avengers Endgame, everyone asked the directors, at what point in time was Captain America able to pick up the hammer? And they're like, he could always pick up the hammer. He just chose not to. We never thought that he could actually pick it up the whole time. This is like an old tactic that they use, and I'm pretty sure they're just trying to mislead us big time here, because does it make sense that our sibling wouldn't be a Descender if we are? Unless there's some weird time travel, memory alteration, or she's been cloned, and then that clone is from Teyvat, a native from Teyvat. Now, since we talked about that, so let's say our sibling is the third Descender. Well, they're our sibling. Would they be able to harvest all the elements like we do? Or at least resonate with all of them? I would say it's safe to assume yes. They're our sibling. They would be able to do the same that we can with all the elements. The fact that the characters are interchangeable as playable characters, you can play as a male or a female, that should tell you everything you need to know. We know that they can. And we know the third Descender fought the Heavenly Principles, because both of our characters did. So if she was the third Descender, then it chronologically makes sense in that regard. And that maybe when she did her journey, she harvested all the elements, and then it backfired and the Sustainer took them. And now we're kind of doing the same thing, but only it's going to be different this time. And that's why our sibling, literally, we have already seen our sibling. She's like, nope, you got to finish your journey. It's like, almost like it's something that just has to happen. And that now she's hiding out in the Abyss as the Abyss Queen. Kind of like the Battle Pass trailer says. There is one small problem with this theory, though, and it's that the discrepancy of when the Archons actually received this Gnosis. Now, there could be a loophole around this, but the Archons are said to receive their Gnosis like 2,000 years ago. And if Lumine and Ether only arrived in Teyvat 500 years ago, like roughly around the time that Conria was about to get destroyed, then it wouldn't make sense in that regard. So actually it being the Sinner, being a third Descender, would make more sense, and that third Sinner would have then arrived in Teyvat a little before the Archon War, so they would have been around 2,000 years ago. It's possible the Sinner could have been around that long. I thought it was an interesting piece of dialogue, though, that we got to talk to one of the Hexen Circle witches, N, where she stated that fate is a funny thing and can be altered, but usually done outside of the laws of Teyvat, either in the Dark Sea or the Abyss, somewhere beyond Celestia's gaze.
Just as prophecies are usually only the future as seen from the perspectives of the gods, could things be happening in hidden corners where the gods' gaze does not fall? Are the things that you shall see different from the fate that the gods perceive?
And that what we see is just history of the future. Kind of an interesting piece of information. Like, we've already been doing this before. Like, we're in a time loop. And I know there's a lot of theories already out there about Genshin being upside down or being in one gigantic time loop that we're just replaying over and over, and we're trying to break the cycle. But it just seems to be weirder and weirder to me that our sibling insists that we finish our journey. Almost like it has to be done. Like, oh, we found our sibling, let's go home. No, I'm the Abyssal Queen, and you gotta finish your journey and learn the truth of this world. Which is what exactly? Well, I believe the truth of this world is that once the primordial one was defeated by the Sustainer, the second who came and annihilated all of her civilizations, she created the new world order with the seven. And we see that everybody that tries to break out of that cycle gets killed or dead, ends up dead in some form, like Orobashi saving the Enkanomians, King Dasher trying to break away from Celestia's control, Focalor just trying to create humanity for her people and let them live like humans. Like, there's a lot of different ways that people rebel that they end up dead at the end of the day. So everyone has the same agenda, it seems, to try to get rid of the heavenly principles. That's the common denominator here. But to wrap up the video, there's a lot of discrepancies and a lot of stuff we still don't know. But my theory right now is I'm leaning towards either the sinner or our sibling. There's a little bit of stuff that debunks that, but I believe that's misconception. I believe that's meant to mislead us, in my opinion. I believe King Irmin or our sibling is the most likely candidate, other than it being a random third-party entity that we just haven't met yet. So that third-party entity was a third descender that came to Teyvat, died or got killed by the Sustainer. She collected the Gnosis from his body, or her body, and then just distributed it out. So in that sense, this third descender is just a random third descender, and that's it. So that would be kind of boring. I'm sure Hoyoverse is going for a more shocking reveal than that, so I don't think it's going to be just that simple and boring. But anyways, that's going to wrap the video up because we still need more information. I want to talk about Skirk next and the Fowl, her master. We're going to talk about how she just yeeted that giant whale into a portal because, people just don't do that, so we got to talk about it. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know your thoughts. Again, this is a theory, so take it with a grain of salt. It's fun to talk about these things, and that's one of the best parts about Genshin Impact is they have this crazy overarching story with all this lore. So it's fun to dissect and debate and just, come up with crazy ideas as what could be going on, because they do this on purpose. They want us to be doing this. So, let's humor them. So on that note, thank you for watching. Feel free to sucker punch that like button. It helps me get in the algorithm, guys. I really do appreciate you watching this far. And as always, we will see you all in the next one. Later.